Again, thanks everyone for joining the session. I hope you all have sent some screenshots for the programs. It's really well and good, but I'll do it very quickly for someone who wants to understand how this can be done. So, and then we'll move to the next topic, right? So first we have this greatest of three numbers, and it's a very common question that's been asked across. So the reason why I have given is you have to use if conditions here. You can use nested ifs or either if else conditions. So yeah, let's assume you have int a equal to 10 and int b equal to 15. Okay, let's assume you have number like this. Obviously, you can understand C is the biggest one, but still need to write a program because the A, B, and C value can change tomorrow, right? So good. What you can do, you can write with is A greater than B, and then A greater than C. Okay, so you're printing A is bigger, and you can also print the value what it is. Okay, let's say A. Okay, you can also give some spaces if you want, right? And many people have written this code. So B is greater than A, and they also mention B is greater than C. So this is a common code they have written, right? Sorry, it's an else block, else if. Okay. So here B is bigger. B. This is the code that most of you have written. It's absolutely fine. But if you notice, as long as you can understand and write at least this piece of code is really good. But if you notice, if A is greater than B, okay, this will go here. Okay, then there are it's obviously not possible that B is greater than this particular statement. You don't even really have to validate because this will be always true, because if A is greater than B, it will go here, right? So obviously the else case is B is greater than A, so you don't really have to validate this. Okay, so this and condition can be removed as well. Okay, so you can just validate B is greater than C, right? If this is case, then B is greater, otherwise C is greater. Okay, it's not really harmful that you can write like this. Okay, this will take at least a minute, sorry, not a minute, at least a unit time to uh, solve this B is greater than A condition. Okay, so in this cases, okay, you don't really have to write it. So this can be optimized like this, right? So I can run this code and then check whether this is working fine. Okay, obviously when you are testing it, you need to test each and every thing. Okay, you should not just to test only one thing. Suppose let me make this as a big one now. Okay, and let's see. Okay, and now let me also make this one as big now. So now, yeah, everything is working. So A is bigger, B is bigger, C is bigger. We have tested each and every block in the if condition. That's very important. Okay, whenever you are doing some testing, you need to put different values and test each and every block. Again, you can also use nested ifs, if you want, or this is more than enough. Okay, good. Now after this program, it's a very simple program again to print all the numbers divisible by 2 and 3. So yeah, so you can use for I, and I have to start from 1. That's a case that I have given, and till 200. And right, so there are multiple ways. Okay, if I modulus 2 equal 0, and I modulus 3 equal 0. Okay, then I want to print the I, right? This is a very common case, right? So okay, this is how it is. But yeah, you can still also write in different way, little bit different way. Okay, you can put it as so, and then you have another if condition where you are validating I. Okay, Good. So, and then there is one important rule that you can remember. Like, it's okay if the if condition is having just only one line of code. Okay, if it is having just only one line of code, then you don't have to mention the braces. Okay, even if this if condition is having only this, right? So you can basically remove it. Yeah. I think I have removed one unnecessary. So I think I'm messed up something. Erase this. Okay. So if you notice, there is a brackets, extra bracket here. So let me remove this. Again, guys, I'm using a plugin called as rainbow brackets. Okay. What it does is you have a curly brace here that is starting. So that is yellow color. So the ending curly brace is also yellow color. You have a blue curly brace here. You have a blue curly brace here. So it means this is the starting brace. This is the closing brace, right? Whenever you're using a lot of if condition on for loop, okay, this is better to use this plugin. Okay, you can go and install from settings, and you can go to the plugins. Okay, and you can go to the marketplace and search for rainbow brackets. Okay, so you can install this. Okay, so this particular plugin, if you install, it'll highlight your brackets. Otherwise these all brackets will be in same color, so it will be a little difficult for you to identify which braces is for which one. Okay, so even if you notice the round brackets is yellow color here, yellow color here, it's green color here, green color. So it's just a way to easily identify which one is the starting brace and which one is the closing brace. Yeah, you can also write like this. And some people, as I mentioned, they also have written I modulus 6 equal to 0. Okay, this is also fine because a number that is divisible by 2 and number divisible by 3, then this number is also divisible by 6. This is also fine. But the reason why I have given the code is I want you guys to try modulus 2 equal to 0 and modulus 3 equal to 0. Good, fine, as long as you can write code like this, shall I go. So now we have learned at least how to write some basic stuff. Let's also go back to basics where I have some numbers here. Int a equal to 5, 10, b equal to 15. Okay, I want to perform the sum operation. So what I am doing, um, I'm doing s out a plus b. Okay, something like this. And then I have another sum operations. Okay, int a equal to 20. Sorry, I cannot use a because it's already used. Maybe I can reassign it, or I can use a different variable. So yeah, int d equal to 25, something like this. Again, I need to produce the sum for this. Okay, so what you are doing, c plus t. Okay, the same way you have to do. Let's imagine you are a developer of a calculator application. Okay, so as a developer of a calculator application, what you have to do, you have to receive the numbers input from the user, and then you need to basically calculate the sum for all of them, right? But the problem is every time they are sending, the values keeps changing, and we have to write the same piece of code every time. Imagine a calculator, so you have to basically do the same stuff again and again, right? So if there is any way that you could optimize the code, because if you want to do 100 operation here, then we need to write for one odd operation, we have written 3 lines of code. For 100, we need to write 300 lines of code. So that's something that's, we should not do. We should not keep repeating the same code again and again. And more importantly, we are occupying, you know, we are creating new variables. Again, I see some noise. Okay. Okay, so this is how it is, right? So we are writing same line of code again and again, which should be avoided. So that's when you have an option to create methods. Okay, so imagine you are a test lead in your project. Okay, you get a lot of work. What do? You delegate some of the work to your testers, right? To the other testers in your team, right? The same way here we have an operation that keeps repeating. The operation is add operation, so it's getting repeated every time, right? A lot of times. So you want to really have some way to avoid that, writing the same line of code again and again. And that's when a component called a method comes into picture. Okay, so how to do this? So as I told, see, you already have this curly brace and this curly brace for this method. Okay, now after this you can create another one. Okay, So what I'm going to do for now, I'm just putting static void. I'll explain what it is. Okay, add. Okay, int. Okay, good. So this is a signature of a method, guys. Okay, if someone is telling what is a method in Java, so you can tell them like it's a small reusable component. Okay, it can be used for anything, but it's a small reusable component. Here in our case, you know we are trying to reuse the add functionality that we have. Okay, so for that the signature is, I'll come to what is static, but we'll understand the remaining stuff here. Okay, I have voluntarily not told about the access modifier, but we'll come to that later. But what is void here? Okay, the void here mentions the return type. Okay, return type. And then the add is the method name. Okay, and then brackets. Okay, you have two things. Okay, one is int a, one is int b. What is that? They are called as parameters. So parameters, parameter 1 comma parameter 2, and then you also have this curly braces which defines this particular method scope is within this brackets. Okay, okay, now whatever you are writing inside that brackets is the method, the operation this method is doing. Okay, in our case this method adds two numbers and print it into the console. Okay, this is the signature of a method. So from this code what we can understand is, if you want to add two numbers, okay, instead of you doing it, okay, pass the two numbers to this method, it will do the operation for you. Okay, so instead of I doing the addition, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call and delegate this work to someone else. Okay, I'm going to tell add. So when I call this method add, this method is telling, okay, you want to give me some work, okay, then give what are all the stuffs that are related to the work. Okay, the work is to add, so I'll give you two numbers for, okay, 10 and 15. Okay, so what I have done, okay, instead of I doing the addition myself, I'm just delegating this activity to this method. Okay, the same way, instead of this you can just mention add and then pass c comma d. Okay, so here also instead of hard coding the value, you can just mention a comma b. Okay, so what happens? So a is 10, b is 15. I'm calling this method and I'm passing a as 10, b as 15. Now this comes to this particular method, and it already has an add method. Okay, so the whatever the value you given here, okay, for a you have given a equal to 10, for b you have given 15. So this will come and get assigned to this guy. Okay, so this a here will now get value of 10 that you passed, and b value as 15. Now it will come inside and execute this piece of code where you have asked to sum a and b, which is 10 and 15. It will print you 25. Next, it will assign c is 25, d is 25 or maybe 35 here, and then we assign c is 25. We are passing the value c as 25 and d equal to 35. Once this is done, it'll again, now the a value here will becomes 25, and then the b value here becomes 35. Okay, now it will try to perform the sum operation for 25 and 35 and prints you 60. So this is how it works. Okay, it doesn't matter that it is a or b. Okay, you can also have this x and y. Okay, if you are using x and y, then you have to use x plus y here. Okay, so what are the values these variables have? It is just assigning that to this particular variable parameter. Okay, and then you can use the sum operation. Okay, let's try to run the test and see whether this is working fine. So yes, so it is printing 25 and 60, but this time we have avoided the logic here. Okay, we are not writing the logic here. We are only calling this. Okay, calling this method and then we are passing. The reason the method is having a return type of void is because it is not returning anything. Okay, Let's assume you are a team lead and you have a guy who is really performing well. Okay, so you just give the task to him. Okay, he will always complete it. Okay, you don't really have to go get the work what he has done and then review it. The same is the this particular method. It takes the work and does it. Okay, it does not tell you back, okay, hey, I have done this and this is the output of this. It won't return you. But in some cases, what you can also do, if the guy is not performing well, you want to get the output from him and then you want to review it before sending to client. The same way, what you can do, you can also return int. Suppose I'm adding two numbers. Instead of just printing it here, I will return to you, return x plus y to you. Okay, you manage it. Okay, whether you want to print it, or you want to do with do something else with that particular value, you do it. But my role is, I will do the job, I'll give you back by x plus y. Okay, so now this method is returning int because it'll sum these two numbers and it'll return here. Okay, so now I can also int c or int e maybe. Yeah, I can write like this. So what it does is, first it'll add, it'll call this method and then it'll do the add. This method will return back 25 and this 25 gets assigned to e. Once this is assigned to e, you can also do the printing. Okay, the same way, this method is also returning something. Okay, let's try to run it and see, okay, what's happening. Okay, I'll explain clearly. So here, so so this has printed 25 but it hasn't printed 60 because the add method that you called is adding these two numbers and then it returning you back the value, but you are not doing anything. See, the IntelliJ is also highlighting that test.add is ignored. You are not doing anything with the returned value. Okay, what you want to do with it? Okay, you can directly add this out. Okay, it's not that you have to create a variable and then you need to assign it. You can directly add so. So what this will do, it'll call this, it'll get the sum back and then it'll print it. Now if you run the test, it's 25 and 60. Okay, so you can either assign to a variable and then print it, or you can directly print it. So any doubts in this method, guys? Methods are really important. You need to understand what's happening. Can you understand what's happening here? Any
Yeah,
doubts?
yes, sir.
Okay, so it's very, very simple. Okay, I'll come to what is static later, but for now, you just need to understand what is the method signature looks like. Signature means the skeleton of the method. Okay, the method skeleton, first it will have a return type, then it will have the method name. So method name should be meaningful. Okay, suppose let's say you are doing x minus y, but you are telling add. Okay, then it is not good. Okay, if it is doing subtraction, just name the method as sub or subtract two numbers or whatever. Okay, so the name of the method should be more meaningful to the operation what it does. Okay, good. So this is how a method works. And we also let me also remove all these things. And okay, now I also want to cover one more thing before we head on to Selenium. See, if you notice, every time when we use, we're using int a equal to 10, int b equal to 15, all that. Every time we are actually creating new variable. Whenever you are creating a new variable, what happens? Okay, you are occupying some memory. Okay, I'll come to memory and all later point of time. I don't want to confuse, but it's all occupies some memory. Okay, they are occupying some memory in your in your system, right? So because it needs to store it somewhere, fetch it when you want and all that, right? So it occupies some memory. So you are using more variables, you are occupying more memory. Again, guys, when you are using 1,000 variables also, Java can handle, your machines will be able to handle it. Okay, but as a good practice, okay, it's good to use proper stuff to store values. Okay, let's say let me open the Selenium. So here, Okay, previously we used to store, like this, right? Variable, for each variable we have stored like this, correct? So for let's say int type, long type, string, everything we stored in individual containers. Okay, this is fine, but they all occupies a lot of space, right? So that's the problem. Even in your kitchen, if you have thousands of these containers, it will occupy a lot of space. So that's when you have a really handy way, right? You would have already seen, if you're from India, you would have actually know about these things, that this is an effective way to store things, right? So instead of keeping it in all different containers, they put it in a single container, and then you can manage them all easily. If you want to fetch something very quickly, you can directly fetch it from here, right? So this is an ultimate example of why we want to use an array in Java, right? So so every time it occupies a lot of space, so what I want to do, I want to store a numbers from let's say 1 to 10. Okay, instead of I creating 10 variables like int c equal to 3, in d equal to 4 and all that, what I can basically do, I can create it as an array. Okay, so array is basically so array is basically a collection of similar data types. Okay, good. So now we'll understand what is an array. So instead of used to creating 10 variables and storing 1 to 10, what you can do, you can just mention int array, uh, maybe e for now. Okay, equal to uh, new int, how many numbers you want to store here. Or if you already know what and all stuff you want to store, then you can directly tell 1 comma 2 comma 3. So you can, okay, you can basically store this. Okay, so now what happens, right? So now you have only one variable, that is e. Maybe I'll change it as an array so that it's more meaningful. Okay, so you now only one variable. Again, guys, you can name this anything. You can also name this Amud, and that doesn't matter. Okay, so as long as this is unique, it's all fine. I cannot name it as a because a is already assigned, or I will remove this. Okay, so now you have an array, that is a, and it has all these values. Okay, now how will you fetch this? Okay, it's, imagine you're having a container like this. Okay, so each of them is in different place. Okay, so how this is arranged in Java is something you can imagine like this. Okay, imagine this array is like this. Okay, so this is all splitted like this. Okay, good. Now here the one will be there. Okay, here 2, 3, 4, 5. So same way it will be, in each container it will have one number. Okay, but these containers are all having something called as index. Okay, which means this is 0th index, first index, second index, third index, fourth index, fifth index. Okay, and then till whatever the number you are having. Okay, so you can imagine this index as your seat. Okay, this is like a seating. Okay, so so whatever the number that you mentioned first will be in the 0th index. Okay, let's say you are in a class, we all have roll numbers, right? So let's say the roll number is starting from 0 here. Okay, hey, roll number 0 come here means this one will come. Okay, if you are interested in roll number 1 means the number 2 will come. Okay, so yeah, so that's very important. So all your indexes will start from 0. This is applicable to all programming languages. Whatever the language that you want to learn in future, the index going to be starting from 0, right? Just a minute, guys, just a minute. I am just sorry. Oh, sorry guys, I was interrupted. Good. So all your indexes will be starting from 0, and it will end till your size minus 1. So we'll understand what is your length and all, size and all. So yeah, just go here. Suppose you want to get the 4 here. Okay, if you want to print 4, it is present in which index? So it is 0th index, first index, second index. This is the third index. So if you want to access 4, I want to print whatever in the third index. Okay, a of square brackets 3, which means the index is 3. Whatever the element that is present there, I want to print it. Okay, so let's see what's happening. Okay, so it is now printing 4. It doesn't matter that you always have to store 1 to 10. Okay, you can also store some random values. Okay, you can store anything like this. Okay, if I print a of 3 now, it will print 445 because that's in the third index. This is 0th index, this is first index, second index, third index. Okay, okay, so we are printing it. So let's say I want to print 7th index. Okay, you should know which number it should print. Okay, so that's very important. Right, but if I try to print something that is out, okay, this array is having 10 elements. Okay, so the index will be 9 maximum, right? So if I try to print the 10th index, which is actually not present here, let's see what's happening. So it's telling array index out of bound exception. So we need to understand what this exception is. This is just basically an error message for now. So what it's telling, hey, you are trying to use an array whose index is out of bounds. Okay, this particular array is having index from 0 to 9, correct? 0 to 9. So when I say bound, so your starting index is 0, your ending index is 9. So the index bound, the upper bound and lower bound is from 0 to 9. So you can only operate between 0 to 9. If you're trying to access an index that is out of this bound, you will get out array index out of bound exception, right? So that's easy it is to understand the error message, right? Good. Now if you want to print all these values, right, so then you can also use, so for loop. Okay, I want to do for loop. Okay, for I want to start with 0 because my index is also 0, but I want to end till, okay, ninth index because I know ninth is the last index. So I can mention 10, either less than 10 or less than or equal to 9. Okay, whatever. And then I want to do a print s out a of I. Previously we just mentioned I. This time we are mentioning a of I. When we are telling it, we need to tell a of I, but when we are writing it, a square brackets I square brackets, right? That's how we have to write it. Good. Now if I print it, so it's printing all these values one by one, right? So what it does is it takes first value a of 0, then then the I value becomes 1, then the a of 1 is 24, then I will be 2, then a of 2 is 343. So it does basically the same operation, but instead of directly printing the I, we are printing a of I. A of I means it will fetch values from the index, right? Good. So this is how it works. But the problem here is, okay, I have hard coded the index. Tomorrow someone comes and add one more value to this. Okay. Now the index is 10. So you have to go and change it to 10 here, right? So instead of you manually doing it, okay, if there is a way where you could find the length of this array, then it will be easy, right? So there is a method, okay, s out a dot length. Okay, so what this does, okay, this method helps us to create, I guess. So this method, this is not a method, this is a variable, it seems. Okay, so this a dot length, in RLS we have method here, there is a variable called length, and this helps us to print what is the size of this. Okay, let's try to see what it's printing. Okay, so if you notice, this is printing 11. Okay, this is the size of it, right? So maybe this is confusing because, so size of the length is 11. Okay, the size of the length is 11, but the index will be till 10, right? So what you can do, uh, a, here instead of this you can mention a dot length, okay, minus 1. Okay, or you can basically assign this to a variable int length equal to a dot length, okay, minus 1, something like this, okay, so that you can directly mention length, okay. So this variable is here, okay. Now we can iterate, and then so even if you add more values, that doesn't matter, okay. So so at the end, what you have to understand is array is a collection of similar data types, okay. To find the length of the array, we can use a dot length, whatever the length variable we can call it, and then get the length. And the index, the maximum index, the largest index is always one less than the length of array, okay. And yeah, your all the your small the index always starts from 0. And if you try to access numbers that is out of bound of index, you need to know which exception you'll get. Array index out of bound exception, okay, very simple. So as long as you know until this is far good. So the reason why we want to use array is because if you use multiple variables, they all occupies a lot of space, and operating on them will be really difficult. But if you have something as an array, which is a collection of similar data types, which means I can only have all these as same data type. Here, if you notice, all of them are integers. If I try to add something as a, like this, it's a float or double, right? So it cannot be here. You need to have everything as a same type, okay. I can have either all of them as numbers or all of them as strings and all, but you cannot mix things, okay. Good. So yeah, the only other thing that I missed to mention is you need to know what is the size. The array, the problem with array is it's a fixed size, okay. While you create, you need to know how many thing you want to do, okay. Suppose I want to add one more element to this after creating, that is not possible because it's of fixed size, you cannot do it, right? Suppose there are cases where you don't know what are the values that you're going to assign at the later point of time. If in that case, what you can tell, so int, let's assume you have one more array that is b, but you don't know what are all the elements, but you have to know how many elements, okay. So here what I can mention, new int array, and I need to tell how many elements. I want to store 3 elements inside this. Those 3 elements can be anything, but you need to know how many elements. That's very important, okay. So let's say I'm putting e, okay. So later point of time, you can mention this e of, I can assign variables one by one as well, okay. So e of 0, in the 0th index, I can assign 56. And e of first index, I can assign 72. E of 2, I can assign 83, whatever, okay. So now we have assigned all the values to it. Suppose if you try to assign one more value, it cannot work because e of 3 equal to 152, okay. Now what happens if this is the size of the array is 3, then the index will be 0, 1, 2, right? And in the 0th index, we already added this. First index, we already added this. Second index, we already added this. You are right, try to operate on index that is 3, which is actually not present at all. So again, you will get array index out of bound exception. Let's see. See, we are getting array index out of bound exception. And what is the array that is getting, we are trying to operate on 3, which is not available. And you can also see on which line number it is failing. So in the test.java, so this is a test.java file, and the line number is 17, okay. In the test.java, there is a 17th line number, colon 17. 17 means 17th line number, we are facing the issue. So exactly you know where the issue is happening, and then you can go and debug it. So I can remove this. Here, if you want to again print it, okay. So you can basically use, if you just want to print one value, you can just use like this, okay. If you want all the values, you can again use for loop and then print all the values. So the problem here is it is of fixed size. Either you need to know what and all numbers. So if so, there are two difference here. We only know how many numbers, that's okay. Here we know what and all the numbers. If you give what and all the numbers, you can count automatically. Java can understand, okay, this guy is giving 11 numbers, okay, the size is then 11, I can assume that it is 11 in the 11 size. So so this is the two ways, but in both the ways you need to know the size beforehand, which is not always the case, right? So we may need to increase or decrease the size based on the demand. So at those cases we cannot use arrays, but for now understand till here, that is more than enough. We will get back to array list or other topics later point of time. Okay, the one thing that I missed to cover is it's not always that you have to use bit int b equal to 2 at this. We are doing two operation here. Okay, instead of doing two operation, okay, you can split these two operation into separate things. Okay, first you can initialize b, and rather you can assign some value to it. Okay, instead of doing it in one step, we are actually doing it in two steps. Okay, here this is, so that we are creating a variable called c, and we are assigning a value. So there are two operation. One is we are creating a variable called c, that is first operation. And the second operation is we are assigning a value of 3 to c. They are doing two operation. These two operation can be split into two different statements. First, I'm creating a variable, okay, and I'm assigning a value to it. So these are two different things, but we are actually doing it in one line. Okay, you can either do like this or do like this, right? Anything is fine, but preferably do like this. Okay, instead of writing two lines of code, you can write one line of code. That's all for today. I think if you have any doubts, I'll happy to answer. If not, we'll again connect tomorrow. Tomorrow is special day, right? Thursday we'll have co-working sessions where you can share your screen, ask me all your doubts. Okay, so if you have any doubts, just join tomorrow. If you don't have any doubts, you don't have to really join tomorrow's class, and we will be only be covering some doubts that you already have. Yeah, any doubts?
So, Amar, the 24th line, what are you doing? So, just you're trying to find the length.
Yeah, length of this particular array.
Okay.
Okay,
Then 25th,
25th.
25th line.
Okay,
Yeah.
25th line, what I'm doing, see, so as I already told, so if the length of the array is 11, okay, what will be the maximum index?
Um,
Okay,
uh,
so let's take a very simple diagram. Okay, so let's say you have an array, okay, like this, and you have only 3 elements inside this. Let's say the elements are 76, and then you have 85, and then you have 92, something. Okay, so you have something like this. What is the length of this particular array?
3.
3, right? So the length
Yeah.
is 3. Length is 3. What is the start index?
0, 1,
Yeah,
2.
yeah, start
Start is
index is
0.
0, and the last index is 2, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to print all the elements in this array, how will you write the for loop? From 0 to 2, right?
Yeah.
For loop. So, but I cannot directly find the last index. There is no method or variable that is available for me to directly find the last index. Okay.
Okay.
So what I have to do is I have to find the length. The length is 3, and if the length is 3, the index is always -1 of the length. Okay. So you can say assume the last index can also be represented as length
Minus.
-1 always. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what I'm doing. So I cannot directly find the last index. So what I have done, I have found the length. Okay, I have found the length, and I'm just doing -1, which is actually the last index. You can also do int last index equal to length -1. Okay, here you can just mention last index. Okay, correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the thing we are doing. We want to iterate till the last index only, because if you go one out of that index, if you try to access a of 3, the fourth element here, it will obviously throw you array index out of bound exception. So we need to really be very careful with the last value that we want to operate. Okay.
Okay.
Good. Anything from anyone else?
Yeah, Amudan, the first method, you initialize two variables, and you call the method
Mm-hmm.
by assigning two parameters. If
Okay.
you are likewise, if you initialize two variables, but you return three parameters in your method, did
Okay.
they
Okay. Okay.
will
Let's
you
come
call?
to that. Okay. Let's come to that. Let's remove all these things. Okay.
Okay.
Let's. So you are telling that I had a method called as add that takes in int a in b, and it also returned a plus p. Okay, correct. This is a method that I had before. It was static and int, right? And
Yeah.
good. So now you have to call this. So I have an SOut statement and I'm calling two numbers. So let's say I want to add 15 and 36 or 30 for simplicity, right? So now what happens, this 15 and 30 will be gone here. Okay, this a and b will get 15 and 30. Okay, if you change the values, okay, if you change 30 here and 40 here, now so this will be exactly matched. So this is in the first place, so it will be matched to a. So a will be 30 and b will be 40. Okay, now this is returning only one value. So a method, okay, method can accept any number of arguments. Method can have any number of parameters, but it can always return only one thing. It can return only one or nothing. That is in the case of void. If it is void, it will not return anything. If it is not void, it has to always return only one thing. It cannot return multiple things. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it?
if you are saying two variables, but you have the method two parameters. So will they can you call the method? Like example, you have the variable like a int a, int
Okay.
b, int c,
Okay.
but you written the method like this only.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So see, suppose let's say you want to add only two numbers, you create like this. Okay. But sometimes it's not always that you give only two numbers. Someone is telling, I want to add three numbers. Okay. In those cases, okay, what you can do, you can create one more method, static int add, that takes in three arguments. Okay, and then it basically gonna return you a plus b plus c. Okay, so what happens, so let's try to call one more time, that is add with 10 comma 20 comma 30. Okay, now let's put a debug point and see what's happening. Okay, let's put a debug point. I want to run this code and let's see. Debug. So now a value is 30, b value is 40. So if I do a step over, which means it will execute this entire statement. Okay, but I don't want to execute the entire statement. I want to go inside this. Okay, I want to go inside this and see what's happening here. Okay, whether this is calling this method or this method. Okay, so what I can do, instead of step over here, you can press step into. So it will ask you, there are two step intos available, whether you want to step into this or this. So I am telling I want to go into add method. So now if you notice, since there are two arguments, okay, it actually went inside that method that is having two arguments. Just a minute, guys, I'm getting the call. Um, so Java knows, okay, you are calling a method called add. Okay, so it search, okay, where is add method. Okay, then it finds two methods. Now it checks how many arguments. Okay, then it founds here there are two arguments, here there are three arguments. Then it identifies automatically that it has to make the call to this particular method and delegate the work. Okay, and now this is having a is 30, b is 40, and then you go here again. Where is the debug one? Okay, so here I'll do a step over now, and now if you notice in the console, you'll get this printed after I do a step over now. So now it printed 70 and it has took this. This has understood that it needs to make a call to this add method because the number of parameters is matching here. Okay, good. If there is, if next case we have three parameters, now again the method name is add, so it will try to call the method using the add. Okay, now it got confused because there is two methods, but again the number of arguments is three, so it will identify this is the one it needs to call. So if I try to do a step in to the add method, it basically makes the call to the method that is having three parameters. So that's how it understood. Now just try to run it automatically and it prints the value. So this is how it works. So it will try to match using the method names. If the method names are all same, then it will try to match using the number of arguments. Okay. In some cases, the number of arguments can also be same. Okay. Let's say you have a method called as add that takes in double A, comma double B, which means it will only take A plus B, and then basically it returns you double. So now if I run this program again, now this has three confusion. One, okay, there are three add methods. All the methods are having same name. And then, okay, it's now try to find how many number of parameters. Okay, these two methods are having two parameters. Okay, so these two are again confusing. This is now neglected. This is not into consideration now. Okay, now we have these two. Now it will check the type of this. Okay, this is basically an integer, right, without any decimal points. Then it will go inside this. Okay, if you are having something like 25 or 40.24, something like this, then this time it understand there are two parameters, there are two methods with this, and then it will try to call this double method. Okay, so first it will try to understand using the method name. Okay, method name is the first preference. If that is also matching, it will go for number of parameters. If that's also matching, then it will goes for data type of the parameter. Okay, so this is all the three different cases. Okay, I hope I have answered your question. I thought I will cover this on another day, but yeah, since you have asked, that's no problem.
If you take one variable integer, one variable double, then how can you write?
Okay, so let's say static int add int a double b, and I have to return these two, a plus b, but you cannot return an int, you have to return the. Okay, so what happens here? Okay, so let's say someone is passing add 5 comma 15.23, then this will take this into consideration because the first number is integer, the second number is double. Okay, when you add integer and a double, so you are adding 3 and 3.33, then you will get a double as the output, right? 6.33. So that's why the return type is double here. Okay, so when you add an integer and a double, you'll get a double as output. Again guys, you practice. Okay, I cannot teach everything. Okay, there are thousands and thousands of permutation and combinations. Okay, I cannot teach all of these. I can give you an idea how this works. You need to basically create method like this, send it different values, understand which method it is calling, understand how it is calling, and all that stuff, right? You have to practice it. That's when the practice comes into picture. Okay, good. So any other doubts? Okay, let me stop the recording.